The night had swallowed most of the city in silence, except for the low hum of cars far away and the crackle of Malik's tiny fire beneath the bridge. The flames danced unevenly, licking at scraps of cardboard and broken branches he'd gathered earlier. They barely kept the cold away, but it was something that reminded him he was still alive. He pulled his thin hoodie tighter around his shoulders and watched his breath turn white in the air. October was always rough. Cold nights, long shadows, and the endless feeling that nobody saw him anymore. Malik was 16 but carried the exhaustion of someone twice his age. His face was thin, his hands rough from days spent rummaging through trash bins or carrying odd jobs at construction sites when someone was kind enough to pay him a few dollars. He had once had a home, a small apartment with peeling wallpaper, the smell of his mother's cornbread in the air, and laughter that bounced off the walls. But that had disappeared 2 years ago when his mother fell sick and the bills piled higher than hope. After she passed, there was no one left, and the landlord didn't wait for grief to finish its job. He'd been drifting ever since, surviving more on instinct than anything else. Some nights he dreamed of going back to school, of playing basketball with the kids he used to know. Other nights, like this one, he just dreamed of waking up warm. The wind shifted suddenly, bringing with it the faint sound of rustling leaves and something else, a sharp cry, muffled but human. Malik's head snapped up. He listened, holding his breath. For a second, there was nothing. Then it came again, louder this time, a groan, strained and panicked, echoing through the dark. His first instinct was to stay still. Trouble wasn't something he could afford. Out here, when you heard yelling or crying at night, it was usually best to mind your own business. But this sound, there was something different about it. It wasn't angry, it was scared. He stood slowly, brushing dirt from his jeans, and looked toward the trees lining the edge of the river. The sound came from there. He hesitated, then grabbed his small flashlight, the one that barely worked unless he hit it twice on the side. The beam flickered weakly, but it was enough to guide him. His sneakers squished into the muddy ground as he crossed the patch of weeds and broken bottles that separated the underpass from the forest. The cry came again, softer now, as if the person was running out of strength. Malik's pulse quickened. He pushed through the branches, the flashlight trembling in his hand, until he reached a small clearing near the riverbank. That's when he saw him. A man lay sprawled on the ground, one leg twisted awkwardly, his expensive-looking jacket torn, his face pale and slick with sweat. His hands clutched at his calf, and when Malik's light hit it, he saw 2 small puncture wounds oozing dark blood. The man looked up weakly, eyes wide. "Help!" he gasped, voice barely more than a whisper. For a second, Malik froze. He had never seen someone so out of place here. The man looked like he belonged in a high-rise office, not on the dirt beside a river. A watch glinted on his wrist, probably worth more than everything Malik owned. But beneath all that, he was just another human being in pain. Malik dropped to his knees beside him. "What happened?" he asked, his voice shaking. "Snake," the man managed, pointing toward the bushes. "Bit me. It was brown, with rings." Malik didn't need to hear more. His heart hammered. He'd seen enough survival clips on his old phone back when he still had one to know what to do, at least what not to do. He tore a strip from his sleeve and tied it tightly above the bite, his hands trembling as he worked. The man winced in pain, and Malik muttered, "Hold on, just hold on, okay." The man tried to nod but his eyes fluttered. Panic surged through Malik. He looked around, realizing how alone they were. There was no one else in sight, no lights except for his dying flashlight. He didn't even have a phone anymore, it had been stolen weeks ago. He could run to the gas station up the road. It was at least 2 miles away. If he left now, maybe he could make it in time. But if he left the man here alone, he made his decision in an instant. He pressed the man's hand against the wound. "Don't move, I'll be right back," he said firmly. "Please, hurry," the man whispered, his voice fading. Malik didn't wait another second. He took off running, his breath coming in ragged bursts, feet pounding against the damp ground. The night swallowed him whole, the sound of the river fading behind him. All he could think was that he couldn't let that man die, not when he was the only one who had heard him cry out in the dark. Malik ran until his lungs burned and his legs threatened to give out beneath him. The night seemed endless, the road stretching like a dark ribbon through the trees. His sneakers slapped against wet pavement, splashing through puddles left by the afternoon rain. Every few seconds, he glanced over his shoulder as if the darkness might swallow him, or worse, that he'd be too late. By the time the gas station lights appeared in the distance, his chest was on fire, and his throat felt scraped raw. He stumbled inside, the bell above the door chiming weakly. The clerk, a heavy-set man with a cap pulled low, looked up from his phone with mild annoyance. Malik slammed his hands on the counter, gasping, "There's a man, down by the river, he's been bitten by a snake. He needs help. Now." The clerk blinked. "What? Please, call an ambulance." Malik's voice cracked. "He's gonna die if you don't." That got the man moving. He grabbed the phone behind the counter and began dialing. Malik leaned over, trying to catch his breath. The fluorescent lights stung his eyes after so much darkness, and he realized his hands were shaking. When the dispatcher answered, the clerk relayed what Malik told him, his tone skeptical but serious enough. Malik provided directions between gasps, describing the broken bridge, the trail by the river, anything he could think of. When the call ended, the clerk gave him a strange look. "You know this guy?" Malik shook his head. "Never seen him before. He needed help." The clerk studied him for a moment longer, then handed him a bottle of water. "You did good, kid," he said quietly. Malik nodded, took a sip, and without another word turned and sprinted back into the night. The run back felt twice as long. The cold wind bit into his sweat-soaked clothes, but he didn't slow down. His mind kept replaying the image of the man's pale face, the blood pooling beneath his leg, the way his eyes rolled back. Malik prayed silently, not to anyone specific, just to the universe, that he'd still be alive when he got there. When the bridge came into view, Malik saw flashing red and blue lights cutting through the darkness. His heart leapt. Paramedics were already kneeling beside the man, lifting him onto a stretcher. A police officer stood nearby, shining a flashlight toward the trees, probably looking for the snake. Malik slowed to a jog, his chest heaving, and stopped a few feet away, suddenly unsure whether he should approach. One of the medics noticed him. "Hey, you the one who called it in?" Malik nodded wordlessly. "Good job, kid," the medic said without looking up, tightening a bandage around the man's leg. "You probably saved his life. Another hour and he wouldn't have made it." Malik swallowed hard, watching as they loaded the man into the ambulance. Even unconscious, the stranger looked like someone important, his clothes tailored, his watch gleaming beneath the harsh lights. Malik wondered what someone like that was doing out here, alone by the river. As they shut the ambulance doors, one of the paramedics turned to him. "What's your name, son?" "Malik," he said softly. "Malik what?" He hesitated. It had been a long time since anyone needed his last name. "Just Malik." The medic gave a small smile. "All right, just Malik. You did something good tonight. Be proud of that." Malik nodded again, but the praise felt strange. He wasn't used to it. As the ambulance roared to life and sped down the road, he stood there for a moment, breathing in the smell of exhaust and river air. Then, before anyone could ask more questions, he turned and slipped back into the shadows beneath the bridge. By the time he reached his small fire again, the flames had nearly gone out. He sat down, wrapping his arms around his knees, listening to the distant wail of sirens fade into silence. For the first time in a long while, he felt something warm inside his chest, not from the fire, but from the knowledge that he'd done something that mattered. Still, doubt crept in. He wondered if the man would be okay, if the poison had spread too far. He wondered if the man had family, people who'd rush to the hospital and wait by his bed. He wondered if anyone would even remember the boy who'd helped him. Probably not. People like Malik didn't make the news. He looked up at the stars peeking through the clouds and tried to imagine what the man's life was like. Clean clothes, warm bed, food that didn't come from a trash bin. It felt like another world entirely. But somewhere deep down, Malik wasn't jealous. Not tonight. He felt connected, as if saving that man had somehow tied their lives together, even if just for a moment. He lay back on the cold concrete, listening to the hum of cars above him, and let his eyes close. For the first time in months, sleep came easily. He didn't know that in less than a week, the man he'd saved would come looking for him, and that this night, this single act of kindness, would change both of their lives forever. The morning sun broke through the cracks of the bridge, dragging Malik out of sleep. He blinked against the light, half expecting the memories of the night before to fade like a dream, the cry, the snakebite, the ambulance, but every image came back sharp and clear. For a long moment, he just sat there, staring at the river as it glimmered gold in the sunlight. He wondered if the man had made it, if he was somewhere safe, recovering. Probably, he thought, rich people always made it. Days passed, and life went back to its quiet rhythm. Malik spent his mornings at the shelter kitchen line, afternoons scouring alleys for cans and bottles to trade in. He stopped thinking much about that night, until the black car appeared. It was sleek and out of place among the graffiti-stained pillars and rusted beams. The hum of the engine filled the silence beneath the bridge, and Malik's body tensed. He ducked behind one of the concrete supports, watching as the driver's door opened. Out stepped the man, the same man from the river, now dressed in a crisp navy suit, standing straight, alive. For a heartbeat, Malik didn't move. The man looked around, scanning the shadows. "Malik," he called, his voice calm but certain, as if he knew he was being watched. "I know you're here. Please. I just want to talk." Hearing his own name sent a jolt through Malik's chest. Slowly, he stepped out from behind the pillar. The man turned, and when their eyes met, a smile spread across his face. "There you are," the man said. "I've been looking for you for days." Malik stared, unsure what to do with his hands. "You're okay." "I am now," the man replied. "Thanks to you." He took a step closer, and Malik could finally see the faint line of a bandage peeking from beneath his pant leg. "The doctors said if I hadn't gotten help when I did, the venom would have shut my heart down within the hour. You saved my life." Malik shuffled his feet, embarrassed. "Anyone would have helped." The man shook his head. "No, most people wouldn't have risked it. Most wouldn't have even stopped." He paused, studying the boy before him. "My name's Ethan Cross." Malik nodded, though the name meant nothing to him. "I'm just Malik." Ethan smiled faintly. "You said that the night of the bite, didn't you?" "Just Malik. But something tells me there's more to you than that." Malik didn't respond. Compliments felt strange, like clothes that didn't fit. Ethan glanced around the grimy underpass, the torn blankets, the burnt cans, the faded graffiti. "Is this where you've been staying?" Malik hesitated, then nodded once. Ethan's expression softened. "You shouldn't be here. You're too young to be sleeping under concrete." Malik's jaw tightened. "It's not like I've got anywhere else." There was no pity in Ethan's eyes, only resolve. "Then we'll fix that," he said simply. "Come with me." Malik blinked. "What? I owe you my life," Ethan said, his tone quiet but firm. "Let me return the favor. Food, clothes, a safe place to stay, whatever you need." The offer hung in the air, heavy with disbelief. Malik looked past him at the car, its black paint gleaming under the morning sun. It looked like a trap. Too good, too impossible. He wanted to say no, to run back into the shadows where things made sense. But something in Ethan's eyes stopped him. They weren't cold or condescending. They were grateful, honest. "You don't have to trust me right now," Ethan added. "Just give me a chance to help." Malik exhaled slowly. "Why? You don't even know me." "Because you didn't know me either," Ethan said softly, "and you still saved me." That line struck something deep inside Malik, something that had been quiet for too long. He followed Ethan to the car, still cautious, still ready to bolt. But when he sank into the soft leather seat and felt the hum of the engine beneath him, it was like stepping into another world. They drove through neighborhoods Malik had only ever seen from a distance. Clean sidewalks, children laughing, people who didn't look over their shoulders. At a red light, Ethan glanced at him. "What do you want to do with your life, Malik?" Malik shrugged. "Never really thought about it. Survive, mostly." Ethan nodded thoughtfully. What if surviving isn't enough anymore? That question lingered in Malik's mind for years. Ethan kept his promise. Food, shelter, education. He became more than a benefactor. He became a mentor, almost a father figure. Under Ethan's guidance, Malik rediscovered his dreams. He studied hard, caught up on years of lost schooling, and years later, graduated as a doctor. When reporters asked him what inspired his career, Malik never mentioned hardship or struggle. He always said, "It started with a man who was dying, and didn't know that saving him would save me too." And every year, on the anniversary of that night by the river, he and Ethan would meet again. Two lives that once collided by chance, now bound forever by a single act of kindness.